Please welcome to the stage CEO of Symbian Power, Paul Hanks, CEO of the Sovereign Wealth Fund of the Gabonese Republic, Akim Daouda, and co-founder and CEO of Nithio, Dr. Kate Steele, for a conversation on sustainable Africa, moderated by Semafor Business and Technology Editor Gina Chon, CEO of the Sovereign Wealth Fund of the Gabonese Republic, Akim Daouda.
So thank you to all of you for joining us and powering through. Hope you've enjoyed the program so far. We're here to talk about climate change and sustainability, which has had a bit of a tumultuous year, to say the least, in efforts to combat it. We just got done with the COP27 summit in Egypt, where it looked like it was possibly going to be a bust until countries came together at the last minute to sort of theoretically at least agree on a loss and damage fund. We've obviously had the energy crisis because of the war in Ukraine, and inflation has upended a lot of countries' plans as well when it comes to fighting climate change. So we're lucky to have both Akim and Kate here to talk about these issues. And Akim, I wanted to start with you in terms of where this leaves Gabon, where the country is actually not a problem child when it comes to climate change. It actually absorbs more carbon than it emits. And at the same time, you are thinking about investing in developing the country. There's a lot of natural resources, including the forests there. So how are you thinking about the trade-offs when it comes to development versus, trying to also preserve the environment, given some of the headwinds that countries have faced this year?
Thank you. There's a lot to unpack there. First of all, I would like to say that I'm happy to be here and congratulate Semafor for putting together this platform that actually amplifies African voice, especially in the conversation around climate change. And the fact that we're here today here in Washington on the sideline of the US-Africa Leaders Summit really shows signals that the world is recognizing that African issues are global issues now. Just to frame the conversation around climate change and nature-based solution from our perspective, there's three elements. The first one is the world cannot afford African countries to have to choose between their development, catering to the needs of their people, and preserving the environment. So we really have to ensure that we're crafting solutions that allows countries to pursue these two areas similarly. Yeah, that's one. The second one is the element of nature and climate. So far, we've been dissociating them, but we do realize that these issues are intertwined. As we're sitting here today, we have folks in Montreal attending the COP15, the Biodiversity COP. One of the scary statistics that we have is we're realizing that this year alone, we've been losing biodiversity at the fastest rate in the story of humankind. So basically, the solution that we have to find has to be a nature-based solution, and how do we scale that? And last but not least, it's the element of the Congo Basin, which is the region the Gabon is part of. The Congo Basin yesterday was the lung of Africa, but today is the lung of the world. As we all know that the Amazon is a net emitter. So what does that tell us? It tells us that no matter the project we're working on, energy transition, renewable energy, hydrogen, carbon capture technologies, all this is relevant if we don't ensure that we keep the carbon sink that is the Congo Basin. And if we lose the Congo Basin, we lose the fight against climate change. And this is critical. Now, once we've said that, there's another statistic that is really important. When you look at the value that the ecosystem of the Congo Basin has been providing to the world for the past 15 years, it outweighed 150 times the level of international public financing that has been allocated to preserving the Congo Basin. When you look at this mismatch, it's unsustainable in terms of financing. So obviously, Gabon didn't look at the sky and hope for a solution to fall down. This is something that we've been doing for 50 years. The country is 88% covered by forest. We have a deforestation rate of less than 0.1%. We're the most absorbing country in the world in terms of CO2. We created a financial instrument, which are those carbon credits, sovereign carbon credit, 90 million tons. And the reality is, we realize that you do need to create this type of investment, this type of instrument to mobilize capital and resources at scale to ensure that you continue preserving that natural capital and improving the lives of billions of people around the world.
So I wanted to ask a bit more about the carbon credit system, because sort of the concept overall has been somewhat controversial depending on what market you're exactly talking about and who is setting it up and who is deciding the credits and the offsets. So what do you see that's different about the system that you're looking at?
Gabon carbon credits are, I'm not biased here, right? Gabon's carbon credits are really special in the sense that they come with tremendous co-benefits and biodiversity. Because in the voluntary carbon market, you get carbon credits from projects. In Gabon, the whole country is the project. Today, Gabon absorbs 140 million tons of carbon every year, and we emit 35. So we are a net absorber of 100+ million tons of carbon every year. Just to give you a size, 100 million tons of carbon absorption every year, it's a third of France's emission, a fourth of the UK emissions. Just to give you the size of it. Now, and when we're talking about carbon credit or selling or monetizing Gabon's carbon credit, it's not just monetizing for monetizing. It's really, we already have a clear waterfall for how these revenues will be allocated. 25% of the revenues will go back to the forest, 15% to the preservation effort, 10% to the populations in those forested areas. 25% will go into servicing the country's debt. 25% will go into the sovereign wealth fund to continue creating a solid saving base for future generation. And 25% will go into building social infrastructures, healthcare and education. Because preserving and maintaining that forest is also an opportunity cost for our economy and for our people.
Yeah. Well, so Kate, I wanted to turn to you and talk about one of the issues that everyone is facing in terms of energy transition. And we were just talking in the green room about the International Energy Agency's recent statistic about sub-Saharan Africa and their access to electricity for the first time in 2020 because of COVID. The number of people who have access to electricity in that region has actually declined. So in your work, how have you seen the conversation change because of that and the urgency and particularly the way that you're deploying it, where it seems like it's very sort of consumer oriented and very on the ground as opposed to, big sort of pie in the sky capital intensive projects?
Sure, thanks for the question. And I think we're very focused on the fact that there was kind of a loss in progress in terms of energy access, but I think more focused on the fact that by 2030, you'll still have a significant energy access problem globally that is 90% an Africa problem. That's really the only region where you're not seeing great progress being made on energy access. And there'll still be hundreds of millions of people without access by 2030, even when Sustainable Development Goals have said that's the point at which we want to see universal access. We're actually trying to shift some of the narrative around this from explicitly an energy access problem to also a climate adaptation resilience problem. And that's really why we're focusing at the household level, because I think resilience, some of it can be major infrastructure, and some of it can be really how does the household deal with disasters that might be coming. And I think we were very heartened to see the Loss and Disaster Fund negotiations actually end in a positive place. But similar to you, we're really seeing how you can get creative about large-scale climate financing on the continent. And part of what you have to move away from is focusing entirely on mitigation. Mitigation and climate change, absolutely important, really essential to solving it. But 90% of financing goes to mitigation globally. 90% of climate financing goes to mitigation. Africa produces 3% of global emissions. If you're focusing on mitigation, you're not driving capital onto the continent. And that's why we see the financial flows from climate finance into Africa being extremely small. I think a couple of years ago, it would have been 19 billion out of 632 billion. And so I think if you reframe around household resilience, how do you actually get resilient products into the hands of households? That's something that we can be involved in. And so we're offering receivables-backed financing to distributors who are right now providing off-grid energy products. And I think for us, decentralized energy, and especially household energy, is really that resilience move. I was just saying also in the green room that there were pictures from the Pakistan floods earlier this year, and one of the families that's moving to probably a refugee center or somewhere outside their home, they've been displaced, has their solar panel kind of along with them. And it's a terrible outcome. No one wants that to be the future for any household. But wherever they're getting to, they're going to have lights, they're going to have cell phone charging, hopefully they're going to have a fan. So it's going to bring the communication and some comfort that they need. I think that is really a resilient story.
And if we have the slide from Gallup, we had, yes, this is from about migration and just how much climate change has contributed to it. And this is back in 2010, but you can already see the numbers, and obviously drought and certain other conditions have, probably made that worse. So I just wanted, not to leave you on quite a depressing note, but that, Akim and Kate are both interestingly working on these areas to hopefully bring these numbers down. So thank you to both of you for your time.